Well, I should actually be sleeping because the 2 days that I've been here, I get up at like 1 a.m. because that's how the cycle is going. But anyway, well, thank you all for sticking around for this presentation.
Voila.
What I'm going to talk about today really is strategic creativity. As you go in 2020, you would see that most organizations would have their strategic priorities that are targeted towards innovation and creativity. So what does it mean for the HR function to really support these executives and managers who have their strategic priorities that are related to creativity and not productivity? So that's what we are going to talk about. How do you build those teams that are designed to be creative, who can help your executives and managers achieve their objectives related to innovation and so on? So I want to start with some of these common management functions. And you would see that executives and managers would be tasked with most of these functions. So just take a moment, look at these, and think about, do some of these functions really stand out as to what managers are currently doing or they might be expected to do? Does any one function stand out? You feel like, that's the most important function in our organization. Can anybody point out one function? Reduce costs, improve operational efficiency, improve market share, right? Increase market share. So let's divide these into actually two different groups, right? And I'm sure all of you would be very comfortable with what's on the left-hand side. And these are all the functions which really are related to productivity, right? This is what companies are used to doing. This is, they benchmark best practices, they aim at growing market share, better serving your customers, and so on, reducing costs, managing qualities. These are management functions that have been there for like a century or so. What is new and has entered the management function recently, or I would say in the last decade or so, is that creativity side, where they are expected to innovate. They are not expected to just increase market share, but to create new markets. They are not only expected to delight the existing customers, but think about who are the non-customers, how can they really get some new sources of revenues. They are expected to come up with new ideas, evaluate those ideas. They are expected to solve the unsolved. So basically the difference between productivity and creativity, where companies are moving towards, is if you are trying to find a better solution to an existing problem, it's productivity. Trying to do anything faster, easy, making it easier, making it cheaper, removing errors from it, all those things are productivity improvements. They are incremental improvements over what you have already been doing. Creativity is very different because it's solving the unsolved. So you first have to figure out what is that unsolved problem that you want to solve that nobody else is thinking about, right? That's what the innovation part is. And then a very important role is managing risks, which increase many folds when you move from productivity to creativity. You would have heard like 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs fail, right? And you have heard about trial and error and random creativity being a random process and so on. So there is more of a need to manage risks, right? The reason why I'm talking about these is so that you have a better understanding of what exactly the executive may be trying to achieve when they are saying that our priority is making the company more creative. We are now an innovation-driven company. we are going to find innovative solutions to problems and so on. So what we want to talk about really is to understand first the difference between productivity and creativity. When you are, again going back to that same point, when you are trying to find a better solution to an existing problem, you are in an industry and you are doing what everybody else is doing in the industry, right? We call it a red ocean. Why do we call it a red ocean? Because everybody understands the industry in the same way. You know what the customers expect. You know what is to be offered. So if you are, for example, let's say in the restaurant industry, you know what the customers expect. You know what fresh food means. You know what pleasant staff means, and so on. But it's not just you, it's everybody else in the industry as well. So if you are going to try and do better than others in your industry, you are in that productivity space. We call it the red ocean because it is basically a fight for the customers. You want to do better than the others want to do better than you, and it's the fight between the competitors that turns the ocean bloody red, right? The blue space is creativity, and this is a space where there are no competitors, which means you have to figure out what is it that the competitors are not offering, and you want to jump into that space. So let's see, what does that really mean? That means every industry that's currently existing, whichever industry you are in, it's logistics, it's hospitality, it's housing, whatever industry you are in a red ocean because you understand the industry just like everybody else. But what is outside the industry is the unknown space, and you have to figure out how do you go from that red space to the blue space, right? How do you move from productivity to creativity? And that really means altering some of the boundaries of the industry. So boundaries are not any rules that are written somewhere, but this is how people understand industries, right? What do you expect? For example, if I were to say, we are going to start a new fundraising charity, what comes to your mind? What would be your product? Who would be your target market? Who would be your target if it's a fundraising charity? Poor people? Yes? No? It would be older people, it would be richer people, it would be educated people, because you think those are the people who have the resources who can donate to a cause. What really would be your product? It would be something sad that invokes like the guilt in the people who have money. So you make them say, oh, you are privileged, but there are unprivileged, so you should feel guilty about it and better donate, right? So if you are in fundraising charity industry, you understand the industry in the same way, but every other charity also understands the industry in the same way. So if you are going to say, I'm going to do better than all these other like cancer charities, there may be like 200 cancer charities or 200 charities for homeless people and so on. You would understand it in the same way as well. Who is your target market? How are you going to market your products to them? What would be your product? So basically what they want to do is to get the wealthy to donate more, right? Now I want to show you what would a creative mindset look like in this case. We have talked about not thinking about the customers, but thinking about the non-customers. So who would be non-customers? Non-customers for a charity industry would be poor people, right? Non-customers for a charity industry would be school-going children. The charities are not targeting them. Non-customers for the charity industry could be like young graduates who are coming out of college and then making a lot of money, but generally they don't think their money is for charity and so on, right? So is there a creative way to increase your pie rather than competing with every other charity in the industry, innovating and creating something different, right? Have you heard about the comic relief, right? I want to show you a little video where you would see how different creativity is from productivity, right?
We're doing something funny for the money. We're doing something silly for a laugh. Wear one way, put your face in a jelly. Try sitting in a baked bean bath. We're doing something funny for the money. 'Cause money from the funny so lost. We don't care if anybody says, "Oh my word, how silly can you get?" We'll make a lot of money being naughty and daft.
Prepare to be entertained.
I don't sound like a little girl. I sound like a big man.
Can you say quack quack? I am a university professor.
It's the day, every 2 years, where you guys get to have fun, raise money, change lives, and enjoy one of the best nights of TV.
We're going to give you a night of TV you'll never forget.
You look beautiful.
I know.
Look at it! You can get involved too. This year, we'd love you to make your face funny for money. You can join in at home, work or school, and whether you put on one of our 9 new noses, paint your face, or attempt the world's largest selfie, you'll be joining millions of other funny faces up and down the country as they raise life-changing cash.
Comic Relief, what they did was the best thing ever.
The total raised by Comic Relief and Sport Relief since we first started is over £1 billion.
Well, this is serious money that they have raised, right? And this money has been raised in just 18 days because Red Nose Day comes once every 2 years, a day of fun. So it's not the year-round solicitations that the charity company would be sending you, either calling you or sending you mailers and so on. It's once every 2 years. So it's only in those 18 days that they have raised that money. Now the question is, if this was a productivity-based organization, could they have come up with this sort of idea? Could they have implemented this? If they were benchmarking against best practices, are these the best practices? Let's see how silly you can get for a fundraising charity industry. That's not the best practice, right? If they were targeting their energies on how to get the older people to donate more, is this the way to go about it? It's not, right? So everything that they had learned in the productivity space sort of becomes irrelevant because now they have to think about, okay, this is the market, this is the current market, who is outside of the market? Not how you can better serve customers, who are the non-customers, how you can go about them, right? So there are soon to be non-customers, maybe these are not those older, wealthier people, but these are head of household, middle-income people, we call them soon-to-be non-customers. Then they're the refusing non-customers, and they figured out how to get those young professionals who are getting these IT jobs and really making a lot of money. How can they get them to start donating? The unexplored customers are the poor people. They are like the kindergartners in the school who would be donating from their pocket money, which is generally not the market for the fundraising charity industry. So this is just one example, but the point is that you have to see that you need to come up with creative ideas, and then you need to figure out how to implement those ideas, right? And so always innovation has been, or maybe before 10 years, innovation was a random process, which meant at night you have a wonderful drink, in the morning you are feeling excited, and you come up with an idea and you put it into practice. 9 out of 10 of those ideas fail, right? So that model cannot continue to work. If companies change their strategic direction from productivity to creativity, that random trial and error process cannot work. It has to be more systematic, right? So what we want to talk about today is, in the HR role, how do you enable that creativity in an organization? And I'm going to argue that there are going to be 3 things that you need to do. One is to develop the creative mindset. So this simple mindset as to what is creativity and what is productivity and how different it is. Just like I have shown you, people in the organization first need to understand where their focus is going to be targeted, right? So the first step is developing the creative mindset, moving from productivity to creativity. The second thing is you have to provide them tools. You have to provide them the process so that it's no longer a random thing. So you have to teach them creativity, right? And what we want to argue is that creativity is no longer a talent, it's a skill. There are tools and processes which have been developed in the last decade or so, but your team needs to develop their creative competence, right? Have those tools that they're going to use. And the third thing is you also need to give them the confidence that they can do it. So let's think about, let's say you want to transform your body, right? What 3 things do you need? First, you need a change in mindset so that you can focus your thoughts outside of the kitchen and to the gym. That's the first thing, right? The second thing is that you need to have the tools and the processes. It's not that any athlete would tell you. It's not just going to the gym that's going to do it. You need to know which machines are you going to use, how many weights, what's the sequence, what should be the nutrition plan, and so on. So you need to have the tools. You need to have frameworks, processes that are going to tell you how are you going to transform your body. The third thing is you also need to have the motivation to really get up, go in the car, and go to the gym, right? So these 3 things are what you need to enable in your organization as well. Develop the mindset, build creative competence, and the third thing that we will talk about is practice humanness, and we will get to that. That really inspires confidence in people to take on creative projects. So what is creative competence? Creative competence, of course, first is to understand what creativity is, but then having those tools, having those processes, and learning those to implement them. Initially, the whole field of creativity was based on this idea that you need to hire entrepreneurs. These are people who are born with the creative ability. Some people say they have the animal instinct or so. So first, they can come up with creative ideas. Secondly, they have the courage to put them in practice. That used to be the thought. Now it's no longer that you need to only hire entrepreneurs. And why is it different? It is because of this basic truth that creativity can be learned. Because there are these tools and processes that will help you minimize all those risks that come with entrepreneurship. So various different types of tools. Blue Ocean Strategy is one of them, but there are so many different frameworks that you can choose from that would give you the whole process and different tools that people can engage. And I want to show you how some of those tools work like. One of the tools you just saw, right? You look at the market, who are the non-customers, the first year, because when you look at an industry, the non-customers could be the whole universe, right? You cannot go after the whole universe. So you need to have some framework of thinking about who is closest to your industry. What do you need to change to do that? Who is refusing your industry offering? Who is unexplored, and so on? So that's just one of the tools, but gives some structure to how you are going to think about how you are going to increase the pie. Who are you going to target, and so on. There is another tool which is very useful. It's called the buyer utility map. So how do you figure out what are you going to do that others have not done? So this tool, for example, on the top, you are seeing the overall buyer experience cycle. So whichever industry you are in, you could think about what the overall experience looks like. Starts from purchase, delivery, use, maintenance, disposal of service. And then each of these, there are a number of utility levers. So basically what you are looking at are 36 different boxes. Many of those boxes, the industry is focused on. But some of those boxes, nobody has thought of, right? And you have to figure out where are those opportunities, where are those gaps in utility that, that somebody can focus on. Let's think about another industry. So this industry is, let's say, training rooms in your offices. Or let's talk about classrooms in schools, or meeting rooms, or conference rooms, and so on. What does the industry look like? The industry has products which are, let's say, conferencing equipment, or they could have like the interactive whiteboards and so on. So basically, in your rooms, what you are doing, there is equipment that you are buying which will enable collaboration for team members in the room. And then there are other softwares that you are using for collaborating with members who are remote, right? Similarly, in classrooms, there are various different technologies that they are using. A separate technology for polling, a separate technology for whiteboards, so presentations, another technology for access to educational content, and so on. So various different technologies. Now, this is a company that I want to talk about. It's called OneScreen, and this is basically actually our family business. So I helped my baby brother create this product that I want to show you. But what did we figure out? In that industry, it's not coming up with a better interactive whiteboard. The problem that we identified was that in these training rooms, in these classrooms, there are these equipments. Not everybody is using it. Why not? Because they don't know how to use it. They either have to get an IT person to come and show them how to do it, so basically they are not using them. And secondly, these devices don't talk to each other because everything comes from a different vendor. Whiteboard doesn't talk to Zoom, so Zoom is separate and whiteboard is separate and so on, right? So that's another problem. The third problem is that technology changes fast and schools, for example, invest in this technology. Every 5 years or 10 years, the technology is obsolete. So now they have those whiteboards with the projectors and they have to throw them away because the new smart boards are interactive displays like flat panel TVs and so on, right? So there is an technology obsolescence risk that is built in. So this is our company, and what we built, it's basically a smart classroom as a service. It's not selling the equipment, it's selling the service, and that service comes with the free whiteboard, or with the free equipment. And that equipment includes like the smart board with the equipment and all of that. And then it comes with all those softwares that people need. So software for annotation and whiteboarding, software for video conferencing. So in schools, software for distance and blended learning, software that allows for real-time quizzing students, software for automated attendance. So it all gets packaged in one thing, and it's sold as a service where companies don't have to make an initial investment to buy the equipment. They just pay a monthly subscription fee for using all that software, right? It's a drastically different creative move because it's just very different. Are you selling the equipment or are you selling a service? And the equipment comes free with it. It's a very different model. But it's great value for the users. Why? Because there is a button on the screen that says Screen Skills Guru, so the teacher can walk up and click on it and get the IT person to show them how to do a certain thing. So teacher training, capacity building program for teachers, that gets built in, right? Again, the point is, how would they have come up with an idea that the big problem is that they are not using it because they don't know how to use it, because they don't have access to the IT people who can always come and help you, right? It's that buyer utility map, which allowed them to focus on each of those boxes and figure out what is it that the industry has not done, right? So you need to have that tool to bring some structure to your thought process so that you can come up with What is it that's different that the industry has not offered or yet? Let me show you a little video, and that's my...
In 2012, we came up with the idea that we can do a better job at improving the interaction of students and teachers in a classroom
That's my
setting.
baby brother.
So we
No longer
decided
a
to come
baby.
up with this product called OneScreen.
Instead of becoming just a touchscreen manufacturer, we became a solutions provider. We have our distance and blended learning software that allows for video and voice application with anybody in the world. We have a share and collaborate software that allows for basically the collaboration and sharing of information from, let's say, a computer to any device out there as well. On top of that, we have an attendance software. We also have an eShare product that allows for streaming of wireless devices from the classroom, let's say, onto the screen.
The biggest challenge, I feel, for the teachers, they are given 6 or 7 different products from different companies with very little support, and they are expected to learn all of those technologies and utilize them efficiently. It becomes a nightmare. Most of the teachers use less than 10% of the capability of the technology that's in the classroom. We are the only player who's delivering a complete turnkey solution for classroom productivity.
So what nobody else has as well is our Screen Skills Guru support, which is an on-demand support button that allows for teachers to get the ability to ask questions, troubleshooting. You can either do a video call, an audio call, or even just an instant message with our support team.
So what we are doing is we are bringing all of these tools together in a single plug-and-play solution. And when we deliver that, then there is no competition today.
So the last word is the most important. How do you move from the competitive mindset to a creative mindset so that you can come up with a creative thing, right? The point of showing this only was that to build creative competence in your organization, you need to have tools, you need to have processes, and you need to train your HR, your employees in those tools so that they can deliver what is expected of them in the organization, right? So now we have talked about the strategic mindset, the creative mindset, away from competition to creativity. We have talked about the need to build creative competence so that you understand that creativity is a learnable skill and you provide them the tools so that they can be productive. Now let's get to that third part, which is about motivation and confidence, right? People are, in fact, paradoxical in the sense that you want to make a difference, you want to change the world for the better. It is what really, gets you excited. It's makes your heartbeat go faster. It's what, spikes your adrenaline. So that's really the exciting part. But at the same time, most of the people fear that they cannot. They need reassurance. They need the confidence and motivation. Behind our titles, the point is that most of us are really vulnerable, right? Vulnerable in the sense that we want to avoid making fools of ourselves. In our organizations, people, if they have to put their ideas out in the organization, even if they are at the top level, they would feel like, oh, can I do it or not? Is this the right one? Because there are no right and wrong answers, right? So in a sense, what ends up happening is that they move back to the productivity space. It's because they feel like it's difficult to go into the space that's the unknown. They know how to do everything in the known space. Moving to the unknown space is tricky. It's, and the point is that it's not a weakness. It's just a part of being human. Everybody has it. It's my truth, it's your truth, it's everybody's truth, right? That creativity seems riskier to you. So we want to create an environment where this human aspect, this vulnerability, is really embraced in an organization, where there are environment is created where people are comfortable with this vulnerability. Still, they can put out their ideas and make it work. So, and the term that we use for it is called humanness. The good thing is that there is also a systematic way of institutionalizing this in an organization. It's not just a random thing. It is a systematic way. There is a systematic way of how you are going to embrace humanness in an organization. How are you going to instill this confidence in your people that they can do it? And it is done through these three things. The first one is atomization. Let's say somebody gives you a challenge that you need to maybe change the industry boundaries and create some drastic new growth this year and so on. Most of you would be thinking, am I even capable of that? Can I do that? Because the bigness or the newness of the challenge is too big, right? So the first thing that we need to do to make it accessible is called atomization. And that means breaking up the challenge into such small parts that each of those parts seems attainable. The idea comes from Einstein. The basic reflection was that if you broke up any big challenge into its basic components or atoms, any big challenge is then solvable. That means if you are talking about we have to create this new market space, alter industry boundaries, let's break it up into a small challenge, thinking about who is the market, who are the non-customers, right? What are the pain points? So you divide them. Your task at the moment is just to define what are the pain points in the industry. Now you wouldn't say, I cannot do it, right? Because the whole task has been divided into these smaller components. Let's give you one task, which is let's draw a big picture overview of the industry. Does that seem like an undoable task? It does not. But it is part of the whole process. So you start with drawing this big picture of the overall industry, stepping back, looking at what's going on in the industry, what are competitors doing, what are expectations in the industry. Then you move on to the next step. Okay, let's identify who is in the industry, who's outside the industry. Then you move on, identify where are some pain points for the people who are inside the industry. Why are people who are outside the industry outside of it? So again, it comes down to providing them those tools for each of those little steps so that they do not feel like this is something I cannot do. I don't even want to venture into that. So that's the first principle of how you are going to build humanness into it, because you break up the challenge into smaller components. The second part is called first-hand discovery, and I believe she talked about it as well. Strategy and execution have to be tied together. So it's not that somebody is going to make the strategy, hand it down to people who are going to implement it. You have to involve people in the strategy making process. It's only then when they get the confidence. Because in the process, they get to know themselves that there is a need for a change. So if you ask them to observe the customers and non-customers, that's how you get there. Oh, I'm out of time again. But basically the point is that don't give them answers themselves. Give them the tools that will guide them to those answers, right? So that's the second step, which is first-hand discovery. The third one, it's called fair process. Some people call it procedural justice as well. But this is about emotional and intellectual recognition and how do you build in an organization. How do you engage people in strategies that are going to affect them? How do you solicit their input in those ideas? How do you explain when a decision is made in a certain way, why their idea wasn't taken and why anybody else's idea was taken for the better good of the company and so on. And then expectation clarity is also a part of fair process. So engagement, explanation, and expectation clarity where everybody knows what is expected of them. So that's a systematic process of institutionalizing, I would say, creativity in an organization, right? I would end over here. I have already gone out of time. Just one thing that I want to end it on. Strategy is not just mechanical, technical, something. Really, it has to be a balance of hearts and minds. And when you balance hearts and minds, it is said that you gain hands And so you really get the work done in the creativity space. Thank you.